our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Mom with the new fletch.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
And I'm a roach-filled glory hole, Mike.
Mike, what on earth? How could you do that to me? I'm Colton.
It's Jill.
I'm sorry! I'm not.
It's Jill.
And we are back, and it is Pride Month. It is our time to celebrate, our favorite time of the year. So how is everyone's beginning of their Pride Month going? Have you been enjoying yourself? Have you done anything exciting? I know all I've done is just wear lots of Pride socks so far, and I don't know, listen to people complain about, in my hometown, there was a protest against drag. Something like people in drag, and then the protest, only 8 people showed up, and it was quite embarrassing for them.
The 8 worst dressed people in Nova Scotia, too. 100%.
Yeah,
which is saying something, by the way.
I saw pictures. They looked pretty miserable. It was raining. Full disclosure, I'm in Newfoundland. I'm not home right now, so I'm in Mike's house.
Fuller disclosure, I was going to say, you're in my house right now.
I'm in the lair.
Is that a euphemism? It really is Pride Month.
That's right.
In my house.
This episode, I figured the Pride stuff is going to be pretty quick at the beginning, because I'm saving everything for our next Pride episode, which is like our finale of Pride Month. So this one...
The crescendo.
So this one, I thought we'd keep it pretty simple and just kind of guide people, to make sure to go listen to all of the other episodes that we've done throughout the years on our Pride picks, because we've done some iconic movies. We've done Cruising, we've done, Newfoundland's Closet Monster, Heavenly Creatures. We did A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Butcher Baker Nightmare Maker was one that we did.
Oh, that was a classic. Classique.
That was a very classic one. We did Knife Plus Heart and Jennifer's Body. And yeah, so I just wanted to make sure everyone went back and checked out the past episodes and kind of celebrate the month watching lots of queer horror films that'll knock your pride socks off.
And last year we did High Tension. That's the one you forgot.
Oh, High Tension. Okay, yeah. Jeez, look at me.
Ro blocked that out. And
I love
also,
High Tension.
Donate to local organizations, especially if you're American, because LGBTQ plus, especially trans people, are under fire right now, and it's very dire. So go support and show up and protest and donate money to causes.
Hear, hear. We couldn't have said it any better. So let's start off with what we have been consuming. What have you been watching? What have you been listening to? What have you been reading? And Colton, let's start with you.
Dude, I feel like you always start off
Do
with
I?
me.
I mean, we can start with someone else.
You have a lot. You always have a lot.
I have a lot to say, but I haven't actually seen a lot this time. Like, I saw The Boogeyman, which, Rowan and I reviewed on Now Slaying, so if you want to hear my thoughts on that, just listen to that episode. I enjoyed it more than I thought. And then other than that, I went to the theater twice. And the first time I went to see Fast X, or Fast 10, whatever you call it. And the movie isn't even remotely fun. It's just torturous. Half the movie doesn't even involve cars or car-related action. And Vin Diesel is trying at times to give a dramatic performance, as he has a son in this movie who hilariously gets put in great peril right at the end of the movie for the movie's cliffhanger ending, because this is a part 1 to a part 2. Yeah, it's absolutely awful. It's easily the worst movie I've seen this year, and I don't really want to talk about it anymore. I couldn't wait to leave the theater. I like ran out of the theater like faster than the cars were driving in the movie. It's just I was gone. And then the other movie I saw was the new Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which I think as of right now when we're recording this, it's the highest rated movie on Letterboxd of all time for whatever reason. It's not deserving of that. I do think it has pretty beautiful animation and it kind of doubles down on the predecessor's like hyper stylized approach to its animation to really great effect. But everything else to me kind of felt like a slight step backwards. The movie is really like overcomplicated, obviously when you're dealing with all this multiversal mayhem and all these different characters, you can easily lose track of what's going on, and that's kind of what happened to me. It's also overlong. For an animated movie, this is like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's the same length as Fast X, and I did feel it at times. It's obviously a lot more fun than Fast X, but it's very long. And this is also, I guess, similar to Fast X. It's another movie that's a part 1 with its part 2 coming out next year. So it's basically all the characters' journeys, everything's just left unfinished. It doesn't really like build to like an actual climax or like an ending. It just kind of ends at a point. So I just kind of felt disappointed as the credits rolled. And it's not like really, the movie's not bad. It's just more so a testament to how great the first one was, in my opinion. And sometimes I think the simplicity is a lot better. Like, having multiple origin stories is a lot easier to digest than, I don't know, introducing 6 new characters on top of the 5 we already have and having hundreds of Spider-Man swinging around. It's just a lot to keep track of. So yeah, I enjoyed it, but it's also just a little bit disappointing, in my opinion. I also rewatched Troll 2, but we all know that's a masterpiece, so I don't have to talk about that too much.
Oh, we won't talk about it.
Yeah. Well, Mike, what have you been watching?
Oh, speaking of masterpieces,
all right.
I've mostly been watching Drag Race UK. Speaking of, support your drag queens. But the only thing, honestly, I've like been on a real kind of like movie drought recently, but my friend and I did get together and have our try to be multi-weekly Tubi TV movie trash night, and we watched this movie called Obsessive Love. It was from like 1984, and it's actually kind of like this Fatal Attraction, like early Fatal Attraction, because it came out like a couple years before it, where this like mousy woman who's really like this hot woman but with glasses and her hair up in a bun, of course, the usual trope, who becomes obsessed with a like hot handsome like soap star and stalks him and fucks him and then fucks up his life. But it actually, I was like, oh my god, this sounds so good, but then like nobody dies in it or nothing happens, and it's like, oh my god. So it was just this kind of like dreary waste of 2 hours of my life, essentially.
That's funny because the cover, when you logged it on Letterboxd, it kind of looked vaguely porny to me. So I was like, oh,
I know it did,
yeah.
Right? And I was really looking forward to it. I thought it was going to be like, and it wasn't actually. It kind of had TV movie vibes, but it wasn't actually a TV movie. So I thought it was going to be like kind of salacious and like maybe like really sexy or violent, and it was neither of those things. So it was just like a letdown on all fronts. I'm like, it doesn't show them fucking, nobody dies, like what is the point of this movie existing? But yeah, other than that, like I said, just been catching up on Drag Race and kind of tuning out the whole world. Jill, what's on your plate?
I have such a good segue for this.
Ooh.
Last night, me and my friends went to this Mexican restaurant, and I got white girl wasted off of this giant frozen margarita. And then we went back to their house and we watched Debbie Does Dallas 2.
Nice.
And
can I ask where you found this? Like, where did you find it? Like, how did you watch it?
They have a physical copy of it.
Oh, okay.
So,
wild.
I'll have to ask them where they got that.
No, I'm just curious. I just thought you like streamed it, and I'm like, this is
no. We popped that sucker in on Blu-ray, I feel. Anyways, that was interesting. Don't really have much to say about that. Besides, there's no real plot, and
there is a plot. Debbie Does Dallas.
Does she do Dallas? I've never seen it. Does she do all of Dallas?
I didn't finish the movie because then I went to play Mortal Kombat 2. Anyway, so yeah, what I've been consuming, besides Debbie Does Dallas too, I've been reading Hunting Adeline by H.D. Carlton, which is the second book in the duet that I've been reading. Some crazy shit is happening there. The main character gets kidnapped and is sold to sex traffickers, so you like see all of that firsthand. So it's pretty wild. It's not light reading at all.
Wait, is this a smut book or not a smut book?
It is. It is.
Oh my
book.
God! Are you kidding me?
I'm starting to think I'm a prude.
Sex trafficker smut?
Yeah,
well,
this is
okay, she gets rescued. Like, this is all traumatizing to her, right? She gets rescued by her stalker boyfriend, which I can't even touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Okay.
But then there's, like, blood play, and I'm like, I don't want this. So yeah, I feel like a giant prude reading that, so... You know, if you're into that, go ahead.
So I really think that your definition of a prude is not what you think it is.
Yeah, it's anyway. I rewatched The Crow recently, which is a classic that I always return to and love. Yeah, I have the graphic novel sitting on my nightstand, and I'm trying to read that soon. I was sick this past week, as you can probably tell from my voice. And I watched Tales of the Walking Dead when I was in like some kind of fever dream. It's an anthology series in the Walking Dead universe, and I actually really liked it. I didn't want to commit to like any other show in the Walking Dead universe besides.
Wait,
the Walking
isn't that
Dead.
a video game? I thought it was a video game.
Tales
Is it
of the
animated?
Walking Dead?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
It's just like it's just an anthology series, and you know, it's just like 1-hour episodes following people in the universe. They do have Alpha and Lydia in one episode if you follow The Walking Dead. But some of the episodes are really interesting. I love The Walking Dead, and I'm a big fan of anthology type media, so I liked it. I also watched A Beautiful Mind. I know Rowan loves that. And Black Phone when I was sick. I don't really have much to say on those. And of course, Rowan and I watched Open 24 Hours for Stream Screams, so you can check that out on our Patreon. Rowan, what have you been consuming?
Yeah, and I think you're underselling it. Definitely go listen to Open 24 Hours, because it's the best thing we've ever watched on Tubi for this so far, and it was actually
spoilers. Jeez,
pretty fantastic.
You don't have to listen anymore.
Oh, you'll want to listen. I think it's like an hour-long episode. Like we really talked about it. I haven't seen a whole lot. Like I said, I'm in Newfoundland now, so I was kind of getting ready to come over here. But like Colton said, we saw The Boogeyman. So go listen to that episode. I rewatched National Lampoon's Van Wilder.
Oh my God, classic.
Which, yeah, it was something. You know, it was the early days of I guess that like Ryan Reynolds fame just kind of ascending.
The Party Boy days.
Yeah, and it kind of puts a mark for me. I kind of look at it as one of the last like real National Lampoon movies, not like a direct to video, just like no one's ever heard of it, and there's no one in it that, you know, that anyone's ever heard of. This had like name people in it. I also managed to get out to the theater before it left and go see Blackberry, which I was a big fan of. And yeah, I thought it was fantastic. As someone who owned a bunch of Blackberries, was addicted to my Blackberry, I was all about like, you know, well, what's your BBM number? And so you can BBM chat.
Brazilian butt munch?
Yeah, Brazilian butt munch.
Yeah, was that a thing? BBM? I've never heard of that before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Blackberries had their own messenger system, like almost like an ICQ messenger system.
Not ICQ. Also, shout out to everyone who remembers their ICQ number and is that old.
But yeah, it was fantastic. And, you know, I briefly worked in like the phone sector, like cell phones and stuff. And I didn't really know what happened to BlackBerry other than they just disappeared. So this was actually pretty interesting. And if you're a huge fan of Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the lead guys in it there, Glenn, whatever his name is. But like he's fantastic in it. The only other two things I watched was I saw Dark City for the first time, which
nice.
I do
Good
not
one.
know how I hadn't seen it before. Everyone,
It's 2023.
I know. Everyone I know raves about it and always tells me I need to watch it, and I never do. And finally, I sat down, I watched it. I did watch the director's cut, which is, supposed to be the cut to watch of it. And it was fantastic. It's like a great neo-noir, schlocky sci-fi. And yeah, it was magnificent. I enjoyed it. And then lastly, I watched Unhinged. I think that came out in 2020 or 2021 with Russell Crowe. And that was...
Russell Crowe did a movie about my life?
I thought it was a sequel to A Beautiful Mind, wasn't it?
Oh my god.
I mean, basically, probably.
Wait, who watched A Beautiful Mind? Was that you, Jill, or did Rose watch that?
I watched it a couple weeks ago. Like, I rewatched it. But yeah, Unhinged was... I felt weird watching it. It's got hard mega vibes to it. Like, it's kind of like one of these... it's one of these, like, revenge... It's definitely supposed to be a B movie, but it's like a little more high budget than that. But you're supposed to like almost kind of root for Russell Crowe, who is a guy just like stalking a woman and trying to kill everyone she knows because she cut him off in traffic. And, it's, you're not even spoiling anything with this because it's just one of those generic movies where it's like white man's really angry and then he's upset that nothing is the way it used to be. So now he's just gotta, like, punish people. And, yeah, I wanted to like it. It was super violent, so that was kind of, up my alley. But, yeah, I just felt icky about the whole thing. I was like, this is giving off a weird vibe. But, yeah, that is everything I watched. And, yeah, I think the pick this time was Colton's, so do you want to introduce it?
Sure. So the Babadook has been on my list for ages to pick on the show, but it never really quite felt like the right time to do it. But with my inability to get through an episode without mentioning elevated horror, I figured we should go back to what many credit as the original elevated horror film of the elevated horror bubble we're currently living through and see how it holds up. Also, it's Pride Month, and quite frankly, I'm not sure how the Babadook wound up as an LGBTQ plus icon, but I'm hoping that throughout our discussion, Mike can kind of shed a little bit of light on that. So I just thought it would be a fun choice for Pride Month.
So with that, let's get to the trailer, and we'll be back with the synopsis and first experiences.
If it's in a word or it's in a look, you can't get rid of the Babadook.
It wants to scare you first. Then you'll see it.
The Babadook was written and directed by Jennifer Kent, and the story is as follows. A single mother, plagued by the violent death of her husband, battles with her son's fear of a monster lurking in the house, but soon discovers a sinister presence all around her.
So let's talk about, is this the first time we have ever seen this? Or are we huge Babadook fans? We pop it in every year for Pride. We celebrate, and this is the ultimate movie, I feel, that you have to watch during your Pride Month, maybe. Colton, it was your pick. Is this the first time you've ever seen it?
No, it's the second time I've ever seen it. The first time I watched it was basically when the movie came out and everybody was raving about it, but I remember the kid in the movie was so fucking annoying that I basically said I never wanted to watch it again, until now. So this is the second time I've seen it, and believe it or not, man, that kid... still really annoying. What about you, Rowan?
Yeah, so this is the first time I've ever seen it. It was on my radar when it came out. Like you said, Colton, everyone was raving about it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing the trailer and I'm like, this is definitely something I'd be into. And I kind of always pushed it off. It's a tale older than time. It was a movie Exilia also wanted to watch. So I said, yeah, I'll wait for you. And then, you know, it just, you want to watch it? Not tonight. And it just kept getting pushed back further and further. And then it just kind of slipped out of memory. And then, yeah, you picked it. And I was excited to finally get a chance to watch it in my hotel room while everyone else was enjoying themselves, I guess. I was enjoying the Babadook. What about you, Jill?
It's also my first time watching it. It's been on my list forever. And since watching the new Scream movie, I've like had a, you know, reinvigorated interest in watching it because there's that name drop in there.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm happy that you chose it, Colton. And yeah, first time. What about you, Mike?
I watched it when it kind of hit that like peak, like first wave before it became a meme, essentially. I don't know, probably a couple months after it came out, and I found it, I don't know, like on Pirate Bay or something, and so I downloaded it and watched it. I'm gonna be brutally honest. And yeah, I honestly like didn't even remember a lot of it, just like kind of like scenes here and there, and it just sort of like slipped from my mind. I was like, oh yeah, I like that or whatever, and it just sort of like slipped away. So it was funny because when we chose it, and I was actually very excited because I've been thinking for years I need to rewatch this because it's kind of like I didn't see it before because I only vaguely remembered some of it. I'm going to assume I was smoking up before I watched it or something, but anyway, I was really glad to rewatch it, and, you know, maybe it was when it came on Netflix. I don't know. It was I probably pirated it. I'm not going to lie. Anyway, so this was kind of like a half new watch, if that makes sense. I was watching it, but I like about half of it I didn't remember. But to be fair, not a lot happens in it, so you know that's probably why. Oh my God. And that's not a read. It's not a read, but I'm just saying.
That's
like,
a read.
The
library is open, honey.
Let me put on my glasses.
Yeah, reading is fundamental.
It is.
Well, let's get into it. You know what we're going to do? We're going to get into the potato soup and glass of things. Your favorite scene and or favorite kill. Mike, how about you?
Okay, so honestly, my favorite scene is probably... Okay, so I call it the striptease scene. And it's when she's in the bedroom... And I feel like it's not the first time, but it's like one of the really first times that like anything manifests for her. And it's when the like hat drops down out of the fireplace, and then the coat drops. And so I was like, oh, the Babadook's like shedding his layers, you know? And I don't know, that scene just, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like kind of cool and creepy. And I don't know, there was something about it that's like, oh, he's coming out of the closet, but anyway, we won't go there yet. So that's honestly, I really love that scene. It's one of those movies where it's like, I kind of loved the whole thing, and because there's no like kills per se, it's hard to single out a like particular thing that like really moved me. But I thought that was such a cool aspect because it was like, I feel like the first time there was like a physical manifestation of, you know, this like being or entity or whatever you want to call it, you know. What about you, Colton?
Yeah, I had a hard time finding a favorite scene in this movie as well, kind of similar to what you said, where because not a whole lot happens. And it was funny rewatching this like a decade out from first seeing it. I was like, yeah, it's just basically people in a house being haunted, you know, that literally grief, you know.
Yeah,
it's
the kid screaming a lot.
You know. Yeah. But the one part that I definitely didn't remember, it's a quick little beat, but it's basically when there's the black and white late night television show and she's kind of like in and out of sleep, like, you know, staying up really late, and there's the Babadook on TV, and it's like this weird late night television version of the Babadook with some like ritual aspects to it. It's like kind of vaguely hinting at explaining like the creature or like what is going on, and I just kind of liked it. I was like, oh, I didn't remember this at all. It came completely out of left field. And yeah, I liked it. It was very different than the rest of the movie. What about you, Jill?
For me, it's when the Babadook takes full control of our main character, Amelia, and enters her body, and we get this tiny glimpse of what he fully looks like for like a split second. I was like, what in the Marilyn Manson meets Danny DeVito was Penguin? I like the suspense of not knowing what he looks like truly in the flesh until that scene. And it was like really frightening to me. There's also like a thunderstorm happening when I was watching this. So I was watching this alone in my bedroom, and I had to switch and go chase my husband and put it on in the same room as him because I got too spooked, which doesn't happen a lot. I do have another kind of second favorite scene, and that's when they're reading the book, and it's got that, you know, the Babadook lore. And I really like the way they did the reading of the book. It was cool.
The first time or the second time?
Both.
Okay.
I call the second time the DLC because it like expands the lore.
It's
swaps words out.
Yeah.
Messes with the pictures.
Yeah. Very cool. That's I liked it. What about you, Rowan? Sorry.
No, I wanted to say specifically in your scene, I kind of laughed when the Babadook was entering her body because it makes a dinosaur sound as soon as it enters. I don't know if anybody else noticed it, but it's literally like stock, like raptor roaring sound or something.
I did notice the sound, but it didn't trigger that like dinosaur thing in me, but... as you know, I'm not a dinosaur person.
You're the dinosaur boy.
I totally get it, though. I totally get it.
Yeah. Okay, Rowan, what was your favorite scene and or kill? Obviously, it was the dog, right? It has to be the dog.
It wasn't the
dogs.
dog. It wasn't the dog this time. What's funny is I had a scene, and I'm like, you know what? I don't think anyone's going to take this, so that's good, because it'll be something that no one said. And then it gets taken by someone. But I'm going to expand a little bit. My favorite scene is kind of for a vibe, and it's any time at night when the TV's on and she's like in that hallucinatory state, not just the black and white stuff, but like there's other horror movies on television or the cartoons, you know, giving me that.
The telephone chat line ads.
Yeah.
I really like that. Yeah, you're right.
The cartoons giving me the Skinamarink vibes going on.
I have a note about that as well, yeah.
Yeah.
I always love in movies like that kind of trope of horror movies on television late at night and people are like kind of in and out of consciousness.
An illusion.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it, and you know, I was living in the vibes for that.
But like, there really is something about like, you know, if you grew up with that like kind of cable 30 channels, like there's something about that like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, like you can't sleep surfing. You know what I mean? Like it's all just weird, trashy. Like it really doesn't seem real, and like the fact that it was all real, like all the infomercials and like
the
weird
infomercials.
news shit.
I was gonna say when she wakes up and there's this like shitty infomercial, I was like, homegirl staying up way too long. Yeah.
I was almost expecting
like when you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and see the infomercial, like you know you're in the like that's like the pit. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I almost expected the infomercials that I was like, I wonder if these are gonna like turn into the Babadook. Like it kind of reminded me of
the
like,
Babadook voguing.
Yeah, like it reminded me of like some sort of like, you know, Nightmare on Elm Street kind of trick, or where they do something.
Well, you have Nightmare on Elm Street 3 behind you right now. It's like Dick Cavett turning into Freddy Krueger and slashing Zsa Zsa Gabor.
Yeah, and I will say that I guess now that we've, you know, just started talking about it, because I had written down, I couldn't really put my finger on it, that kind of whenever we're in the house, that I'm like, it just has this feel of not reality. And I was like, it kind of feels like very Tim Burton-ish to me. Like kind of like, I'm thinking specifically like Beetlejuice, once Beetlejuice is kind of in the house and wreaking havoc. Like the house has this almost like cardboard paper feel, and it's just like everything's really gray and like, you know, black and whites, where so I'd written it down. I'd written down Tim Burton-ish, where now I'm kind of like, no, it's almost like this television kind of late night television feel of like reality but not reality. And maybe that's almost what I was thinking this whole house felt like whenever they were in it.
I think it's the lighting. Because I had a couple of notes about the lighting in the house and how really strange and unique it was. And I think it's because the whole house is lit up like from a TV screen. And the like weird dark colors on the wall, I don't know.
Did you guys get Hereditary vibes?
I
Like,
actually
when it's
did
dark
write it. I
and-
was like, better Hereditary, but anyway.
What?
I was just doing that to troll Colton. But anyway.
Like when
God,
he's like
my blood
hiding in
pressure.
the shadows, the Babadook, I was so scared.
I
because
did get those vibes though, yeah.
I was looking for stuff that probably wasn't there.
Were you
but
looking
yeah,
for
it scared
Dong, like in Hereditary? Is that what you were trying to peep?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, it was terrifying to me.
Yeah, I didn't get Hereditary vibes for this movie. I mean, other than, once again, the whole concept
Yeah.
of grief, other than that, thematically, I never really got it. But for me, I do kind of agree with what Rowan was saying, where the house just feels weird. And that was kind of like for me as well. Like, I couldn't really put my finger on what time period this movie was supposed to be taking place in.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of the like decor in the house and like what is going on, it literally looks like it'd be set in the 70s or it could be set in the 90s. It could be set basically whenever,
and
really.
the ads that are on the TV are for
Exactly.
like phone lines, which is like the 90s.
Yeah,
But
it's
then
very
it's like they're on the
strange.
internet ordering
Yeah.
fireworks. Like
I
I
had
have
an
so
idea,
many notes.
though.
I'm like literally like it's so out of time. It's like wrenched out of reality. It's so
Yes.
I think that's
Can
what's
we
so
get,
unsettling about it.
Can we get like a time line on that old fucking vibrator that she used? Mike took a drink at the wrong time.
Anyway.
That thing was ancient. That's how I knew this was an older setting.
I didn't know what it was at first till she turned it on. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, I was like, what is going on? Like, did she bring some sort of instrument from the kitchen upstairs, or is this a mixer? What's going on?
Yeah.
But like, okay, so here's my thing, and this sort of echoes back to my thoughts on It Follows, hilariously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it was that, are we looking at something that's wrenched out of another time, or is it because she's very clearly, like, socioeconomically at a disadvantage? Like, is it because she's poor and this is poor shit? You know what I mean? Like, it probably is back in time a bit, but I feel like also the decor and everything is still like a holdover because she's extremely poor.
Yeah,
You know what
I
I mean?
kind of get that as well. Like, obviously she's poor, as we say, but also there's an aspect with the character that she hasn't really ever moved on from her husband's death anyway, so she would be placed, whatever it is, 6 to 7 years back in the
7
past
years,
anyways. And then there's also just, this is a lower budget movie and they probably just worked with what they had, right? So it kind of all works together, I think, in that regard.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So, do we want to talk about, I guess, the implications of, because this was kind of like the first film, was it not, that was like kind of brought our wave of elevated horror into the forefront of at least, like, I think modern horror audiences. Like, everything I kind of tried to read about this just talks about how this was like the flashpoint of elevated horror.
Yeah, there was numerous articles I remember at the time saying, like, it's more than a monster movie, like, oh, this isn't a horror film, this is about grief, which at the time was unique takes or like a novel take that you could actually write an article about it. Now it's like literally every single horror movie is that. So it's kind of funny to
Cut
look
to
on
Jamie Lee Curtis going trauma
Yes.
for 2 minutes straight. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it is interesting. I think a lot of the trappings of the elevated horror genre can be kind of credited back to this movie, but I was kind of surprised when I was watching it how it also just doesn't have a lot of what more modern elevated horror movies have, in my opinion. Like specifically, like with a lot of like the camera work and the technical aspects of it, like a lot of the more modern A24 movies feel a lot more like polished than this in a way. This feels a lot more scrappy, which I think is also why a lot of people like it. But
it feels less like they watched too much Bergman. Like, I feel like the A24 stuff is like, I went to film school and this was just like, I wanted to make a movie. Right? Am I wrong?
No, I mean you're probably right about that, and I don't know.
And it's not like it's sassy, but I'm not trying to be.
Yeah, the Bergman call out's very much a call out to Ari Aster and Robert Eggers. They're huge Bergman fans, both of them. But yeah, I don't know Jennifer Kent's like history, like if she's gone to film school and whatnot. But it very much felt like this movie, specifically the mother's point of view, was something I couldn't really place having seen before. Like, there's this kind of palpable feeling when you watch this movie that, like, oh my god, you instantly get the frame of mind she's in and like how much she kind of resents her kid. And it's insane how quickly like this movie like gets you annoyed at this kid. Like, it's literally after one scene I can't stand the kid, which is remarkable. Jennifer Kent does a great job with that.
This was something for you to jump off of, Rowan, but it just reminded me of Vivarium, which just kind of gives you the same feeling with these shitty kids like driving you insane.
Oh my god, fucking Vivarium! I literally blocked that out of my memory, Jill.
Same until now. I'm like,
yeah.
they were losing their mind over this shitty kid. But sorry, go ahead, Rowan.
I don't know. I might have took the kids in Vivarium over this kid because. I don't like, the common expression of like, I just hate their face. Like, this kid is just like, hey, I was like, man, this is a ugly ass kid. I was like, this kid looks like a zombie or something.
That's too much.
The kid was an asshole, but he was cute-ish.
But my second note in this movie, and I started making notes pretty much like, right away. First note I wrote down. This boy looks like a little psychopath. And then 2, yeah, I'm giving this kid to the Babadook right quick. That was I didn't even know anything about the Babadook, and I was like, let's just whatever it is, let's give him to him. Like, it's not worth it, man. It's not worth it.
Yeah, one of my first notes is that this movie is a great ad for birth control.
Yeah, it is.
So bad.
It is.
The kid's wild. Also, like, he needs to step up his like booby trap game and his weapons. Like, what was the deal? He
clearly never watched Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, hello, exploding light bulbs,
backpack that just like what was it? Like a soup can or something? Just threw a soup can at her head, or I was like, this is a shitty.
I mean, to be fair though, he did also stab her with a kitchen knife. So
yeah, he was trying to be Kevin McAllister like way too hard, but doing a terrible job.
It's so funny though because like the whole annoying kid thing is. I also, like, literally have, like, 8 notes where I'm saying, this is why I fucking hate kids in movies, especially horror movies, and also in real life, but anyway. But then I, like, went on this giant thing about how, like, the thing about this movie is that it really seems to me like, I know it's, like, about grief and everything, but, like, the whole movie, because I was, like, so annoyed by this kid, and I could, like, and she was, too, and I, like, sympathized with her frustration, but like to me the whole time I was going like, this is so about like the failure of our society to like help people who have like, because I was like looking at this and I thought like this child, like maybe is on the autism spectrum or something, and like she just has no help at all and is literally just like on her own. And, like, the whole time I was watching the movie, to me, the most horrifying part of it was, like, that she was thrown to the wolves with this child that she is trying to, like, deal with and help and understand, but also, like, dealing with her own shit. And it was just, like, the absolute failure of society to, give her any kind of aid. And then, like, when the social workers show up, they're just like, oh, okay, well, we're essentially going to, like, give you a week before we take your kid away, And it was just, like, this horrific... I don't know. Like, is that just me?
No, you're right.
Okay.
That's terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, and also
I thought it was.
Just, yeah.
I mean, listen, he's annoying.
Well, he's annoying, but I mean, he is also intricately like linked with trauma in the main character's life. Like, quite literally, like, delivered the kid right after the husband died on the way to the hospital, right? So it's just this living reminder of the worst day of your life, and then also the kid itself and his behavior and whatnot is just literally a constant nightmare. I wonder if it was acting or if the kid is just actually that annoying, because the kid has grown up, obviously. It's been 10 years since this movie comes out. I looked at his credits, he's doing film school stuff, but I can't wait to see him actually star in something as like an adult. and see like, oh, okay, no, you're just actually annoying, or was this just like a great child performance? Because once again, I really struggle to find a kid as irritating as this kid in the movie. It's so irritating that I actually have trouble enjoying a lot of the movie at times because I'm just so on edge and annoyed.
No, I agree. And I think that like is built into the movie too.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like
right?
that is definitely intentional. Yeah.
Like every like literally like what percentage of this movie would you say takes place inside that fucking car? Like probably a good 15 to 20%. And every moment that they're in the car together, like you literally just want her to like just drive into a tree. You know?
I mean,
the Babadook wants that as well. He pops up at one point with that car crash scene.
You're right.
Literally happened.
I mean, my issue with it all is like, wouldn't we be kind of, the Babadook wouldn't be there. None of this would be an issue if Amelia just kind of, let Robbie hit it. Like he was trying to pick up the entire time. She wasn't reciprocating the moves, and the entire film, I said the entire time I was watching this, I'm like, she just wants some dick. That's literally like the whole movie.
Oh my god, yes.
The whole movie.
She should have.
Yeah.
I have multiple notes about Robbie and like eyeball emojis, but me trying to draw eyeball emojis on my notebook. He is, right? He's wonderful, and then he just like disappears forever, and like you don't see him for the rest of the movie.
Yeah, the movie just forgets about him after a certain point, and that's it.
But we didn't.
Yeah, we didn't.
We didn't. No, I was waiting for Robbie to show up and just like save the day for the entire movie.
We also didn't forget about Bugsy, so pour out a cold one for our dead homie Bugsy.
Yeah, that was pretty brutal. Even I could admit to that one.
By the way, Jill's cold one is bottled water.
Oh yeah.
Jill says pour out a cold one and then swig some ice water.
Slightly hungover today.
Well, it's a dog. Dogs like to drink water, so it's appropriate.
That's true.
Toilet water. If you're my dog.
Water.
Jill just drinking toilet water, I guess that's what she's admitting to us. But no, so I was gonna say this was like one of my issues that I had with kind of further into the plot, because I do love a good like mother or housewife, or like these tales of like these women like just going like crazy due to whatever issues in a movie. Like, I do love...
The patriarchy.
Yeah, the patriarchy.
Yeah.
I do love that, but I also kind of wish that, like, because we did get to see her at her job, things like that. And like you said, like, halfway through the movie, it just kind of drops Robbie, the job, like, anything, like, the DCS workers... Like, I would have liked to see them, like, try to come back to the house again, and, like, she's gone even more mad, and, like, is she trying to cover up more stuff? Like, I just felt like they had all these kind of different plot things, even Amelia's sister, and then it was just, like, half of the movie, it was like, no, just totally forget any of these people exist. Like, they're never going to come back again into this film.
With Amelia's sister, at least, you do get a reasoning for it, where she just, once again, cannot stand the kid, and then the kid also, breaks her daughter's nose in 2 places, I think is what it says. So, I mean, there is a reasoning.
But to be honest, that kid also deserved to get pushed out of the tree.
Yes. Well, there is kind of...
You know what?
Like
that kid was also super annoying, but for a completely different reason.
Maybe it's in the gene pool going on here. Their kids just suck.
Yeah, that could be.
I mean, also, it's just that, kids in general. But moving
I
on.
wish there was more gore. When that kid fell, I was like, oh, dang, that kid's dead. No,
yeah, I thought they were going to have her like be like a twisted mess on the ground. Yeah, because they show you that it's like a treehouse, but you don't really know how like is it really high up? Is it like when she went flying? I was like, oh my god, like is she gonna die? I thought this is it. They're gonna like they're gonna kill a kid here. Like,
I mean, you don't need a lot of gore, but there was none. It was like that creamy potato soup they had.
Yeah.
Bland.
Oh.
Yeah, because
Not the creamy
even with the
potato
knife
soup.
stab and stuff, you know, like you saw the...
They don't show it. Yeah, I remember, because again, I did not even remember that happening. And when I rewatched it, I was like, wait, hang on, did I miss something? And I actually rewound that part like 45 seconds just to see if it was like I looked away or looked at my phone or something, because I was like, there's no way that they didn't show more gore in this knife scene, and they didn't.
See, there's scenes like that. I don't know if I can't believe I'm saying this, but I don't know if I like totally, you know, missed the gore not being in this. Like, I thought it was still pretty effective. I thought it was a good use of non-gore. Like, and especially stuff with the Babadook too. Like, I was glad that it was pretty, like, vague. There wasn't, like, you know, we didn't see the Babadook really, like, other than shadows. You know, of course, it really reminded me and Colton talking about the boogeyman, and, you know, how, you know, we said with the boogeyman, you know, the movie really works when you don't see anything, and then when you're forced to look at your monster and all of its shitty
I knew y'all were gonna say that, because that was one of my criticisms, was that I wish I got to see more of the Babadook and a little more gore. And I'm not saying I need a lot of it, but just a little smidgen more would have been good for me, you know?
But Jill, and you're right. No, but Jill, like, he's the titular, as they say on Catholic Hymn, the titular monster. You know, like, yeah, literally, it's the namesake of the movie. You want to get a little more taste. You want, like, a little something on your tongue. Yeah.
I just feel like whenever he was shown, he looked so bad that I didn't want to see him anymore. Like, I think it was a really bad effect. There was like this jittery kind of stop motion effect for him when he's like, let's say, scurrying across the ceiling. Or when you see him at, like, the old lady's house across the road, it's literally just, like, a dude with, like, white face paint on. Like, you know, it's just, I get what you're saying. Like, obviously, more monster in this regard could have been better, because especially so much of the movie is just, like, insular, this kind of, like, dream logic, this surreality of it all. But it was just whenever they were shown, he kind of looked shitty anyways. I thought the most effective horror moments in the movie was actually the audio work. Like when he was doing the phone calls, or when you hear the noises, I thought that was really effective. But when you showed him, it didn't work for me too much in this one.
See, I'm the opposite. I actually kind of liked how he looked.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like, and I like the effect. Like, I guess because I was kind of looking at it, that I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I was assuming they were kind of trying to make him look literally like he was just ripped out
like
of the book. Like,
yeah,
he was like a page in the book,
like
moving.
Drawn.
Yeah, and I thought it was pretty good, and like you said, I do agree the audio work is really good. I appreciate it. All the ducks. Babadook.
Also, I actually did like the amount of gore in the movie, just because when they do show the dad's head get cut at the end
yeah,
of the
that
movie,
was good. Yeah,
it's a good surprise, because they've held back on everything else throughout the movie, and it brought me back to my childhood fears of Ghost Ship in that one scene. So I was
the
like,
meat hook?
What? No, the beginning of Ghost Ship with the wire that comes through and cuts everybody in half.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Oh, okay. You said meat hook. It's a big wire that comes across. Anyways,
is it not a meat hook?
No, it's not.
That's a different scene. I'm so sorry.
It might be a different scene, but literally there's a scene
yeah.
in Ghost Ship with a wire that, like, it takes out like 50 people, and then she looks up at her grandfather, and his head is cut very much in the same way that this guy's head is cut in this movie. So I was like, wow.
Also Resident Evil with the
I was just gonna say the fucking laser thing, and where he's just standing there, and then all of a sudden it's like, it takes like, there's like this 3 or 4 second beat where it's like, oh, nothing happened to him, and then literally he crumbles into like 80 cubes.
Also Underworld.
Oh my god, yes.
With the sword.
You're right.
The rest of the episode.
No, but like I also love that moment too, like, because it like gives that, like, his head getting cut in half, and then he gets yanked into the darkness, and it's actually like, that moment is like terrifying.
That's really good.
I think that was a really good moment, in the movie.
I was curious, did you know, and I know we'll probably jump back around to other parts, but did like the end work for you guys, where, you know, like, obviously I thought it was like very on the nose, where it's like, okay, like, she's, you know, they've learned to deal with their grief, but it's still with them. And like the whole, like, they bring the worms to the Babadook that's just like living in the basement now. I didn't think it real, like, for me, it didn't work. I thought that was the weakest point of the movie, because I was just like, this is so on the nose that it's just
it was very literal.
What did you want them to do? Sorry,
Good
but like,
question.
what would
Good
you have
question.
them do?
I mean, I feel like it would have been better to me if it was kind of, I don't know, like left open whether or not they fully got rid of it or something. Like, I don't know. I just thought I was like, I don't know. This is just there was something about it that gave me weird, like, this would be an ending to like some 80s anthology movie or something. That's like, oh, and then the family actually feeds the monster. And
yeah, I'm kind of with Rowan on this one. It didn't really work for me either. I thought it was too goofy, but that's also going to be my word with a lot of this movie. I actually found it really goofy on a rewatch. Specifically, I think it's the earthworm bit that kind of makes it go over the line for me. I think banishing the Babadook to the basement and it always living there in the shadows, and maybe even her going down to the basement to get something and it being in the shadows and being present, but like she doesn't have to engage with it anymore, or she's not afraid of it anymore, would have been fine. It's the literal feeding him earthworms and picking up the worms and gathering it as like a family affair.
Yeah.
And once again, I get thematically why that works, as hey, grief is here. It's a part of all of us. We're living with it.
And
but,
she's
we're
like, you
kind of
can't
pushing
see it yet. Maybe when you're older.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's all there and it works conceptually. It's just, once again, it's the earthworm digging up and the feeding it to the Babadook, and then literally the kid, being magical, like creating the dove, pulling that out of his hat and stuff. I was like, what is this ending? It's very saccharine sweet, which I guess when the rest of the movie is so bleak and dark and gray, maybe like that's what a lot of people want. But I think I would have just liked it to nudge it back just a little bit. Like, I do like cheese a lot in these like movies that wind up being horror with a heart to some degree, but this kind of went past like the Mike Flanagan era, and even Mike Flanagan's a little bit too much for me. So they just took it like one step too far for me, that I was just kind of like rolling my eyes a little bit at it. I found it a little goofy.
I think overall, like, we kind of shit on Samuel and Noah Wiseman tons. I do want to say, I thought like Essie Davis was like actually really, really good in this.
She's wonderful, yeah.
Like, I thought the performance was awesome. It was one of the, like, I would probably, if I had to rank like psychotic women in horror, like
unraveling, patriarchy, undoing women.
It would really, really go up there. Like, probably my favorite, most recent one would be like the lead character in Censor, but I thought this was like fantastic. She was super scary, I thought, when she needed to be scary. Like, once she kind of gets possessed, I thought the way they made her look was awesome. She just, like, they just did like little touches of like dark makeup, like around the eyes and stuff. And I thought it looked really, really good.
Yeah, I think that she went very Wendy Torrance in The Shining.
Yes, actually.
Right? Yeah.
Like, she even kind of looks like her.
Yeah, like she has that wayfish kind of like thin, like a hollow face, sort of. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed her in the movie as well. I think one of her stronger scenes to me is actually the disadvantaged women scene, where she's sitting around with all the other women and kind of... I actually loved that scene.
So did I.
Yeah, where it essentially says,
right,
not
but
going
it was
to the
so
gym.
awkward.
Not going to the gym, that's a real shame. How do you cope? Like, that sort of scene. I very much loved her, like, actually snapping back and actually taking a little bit of, like, agency in her life for once, just because she is very much just, like, kind of a slave to the circumstances for a lot of this movie. And that's one of the little moments where she actually gets to have a bit of dignity. And I actually really liked that scene. I thought she did a great job in it as well.
Yeah, everyone's really insensitive to her also. Sorry. And the police?
I had
They're
the police
so mean.
I had the police station down as a scene I really enjoyed. For the disadvantaged women, kind of, the more upscale, I guess, women. I think that's where I also kind of felt these like weird Tim Burton influences from, because it really reminded me of, you know, kind of like Edward Scissorhands portrayal.
I was gonna say the women in the fucking town that wanted to fuck Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, like just
that's what it is.
These waspy white women, and I was just like,
they're like, oh my god, cut my hair, fuck me, please.
So I was like, there's no way there's not like some sort of influence there. But yeah, I love the police station. The police station, and I brought this up with the television. The police station really kind of gave me Nightmare on Elm Street vibes, where throughout the series of Nightmare on Elm Street, they usually are pretty good at scenes where you're in one of these settings, but like stuff is just off, or like people are looking at you weird, but it's like, it's not like, oh, she's crazy. Like it's almost just like a creepy look. And I love that scene because it was just, obviously, we have, you know, like the Babadook's outfit hanging in the back, so we know he's manipulating this somehow. And I was like, this is awesome, because I was like, oh, is it, you know, are these actually the actual police, or is like the Babadook influencing like how they're reacting to her and continuing to like make her, you know?
Is it commentary of how our police?
I was gonna say, I just was like, this is pigs for you, right? Like,
can we talk about the best line in the whole film, which is, if you're really that hungry, why don't you go eat shit?
Oh my god! I want that put on a t-shirt.
Same.
To be honest.
My favorite line of hers is, "Why can't you just be normal?" Screaming at the top of her lungs in his face.
But brutal. That became a meme, right? Like, I would see that, like, transposed into, like, everything. Like, I'm thinking of all the, like, weird niches of, like, stuff that I follow online, and it's, like, movies and video games and all this shit, and like in the, I want to say 2 years after this movie came out, you would see that like, why can't you be normal memed in like 18 different ways. You know what I mean? And it's
her
like
screaming face as well. It was
yeah. It's kind of iconic, which is like, honestly, congratulations. Like, if you can get turned into a meme, you've already made it.
Speaking of meme status, Mike, maybe now's a good time to explain why is the Babadook a gay icon? What happened here?
So it's weird that this is sort of like the genesis of, you know, the kind of contemporary elevated horror, because it was also this like weird seed of a new thing that happens a lot now, where it's like people are like taking readings of film, because like reading a film is not really like generally in the last couple of decades been a like mainstream thing, but I feel like now by turning things into a meme, people are like perpetuating readings of things that are like getting into popular culture in a way that they weren't before. So like so with this movie, it's just so bizarre. I like literally you could write papers on this, and there have actually been many articles written on this phenomena. So you kind of had two things happening simultaneously. One of them was that, and listen, like, horror, everybody will tell you, is like, it's a genre that is like a like queer genre. You know what I mean? It sort of speaks to that experience, and like LGBTQ plus people like really kind of like latch onto it and see themselves in it in like a variety of ways. But so you kind of would see people making a reading of the Babadook as being, because, you know, he like lives in the closet, and like there's one point where he pops out, and, you know, so there was this kind of like tee-hee, you know, sort of like, oh, the Babadook is gay thing happening. But at the same time, then this like, and this is something, it's just this phenomena that like you literally, it's so late capitalist, because you also had Netflix doing their like Pride, like LGBTQ plus films, and just through some glitch in it, the Babadook got added to the list randomly.
Nice.
Just, you know, you see that sometimes. Like I have so many screenshots on my phone of like, oh my god, like, look, this says, you know, Black Voices or whatever, and it's like, you know, To Kill a Mockingbird or something, like just something weird like that. So, like, all of this stuff was kind of happening at once, where people were kind of, like, joking about the Babadook being, like reading it as, like, oh, he's totally queer. or it or them or whatever. I don't know what the Babadook's pronouns are.
Pronouns are? Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't misgender Babadook.
No,
actually,
I would never.
it's Mr. Babadook.
They said Mr.
Oh, it's Mr.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Mr.
You're right.
Babadook,
You're right. Yeah,
He
it's
is
the
a
title of the book.
sir.
The title of the book. Okay, you're right. So I will call the Babadook him. Anyway,
Him.
So then at the exact same time that Netflix thing happened, so that snowballed. That kind of like exploded it, where like on Tumblr, people like took screenshots of it and they were like, haha, like I knew the Babadook was gay. And then it like leaked over to Twitter, where it absolutely exploded. And it sort of snowballed into like this insane meme. But like at the same time, while it was being memed as like, oh yeah, the Babadook, totally gay. And like people started speaking of it as if it was fact. You know, like it wasn't just like, teehee, I'm like talking about a meme. It was literally like people were going like, why the fuck are you saying this? And they're like, obviously he's gay. You know what I mean? Like just talking about it as fact. But then at the same time, people were starting to like, you know, do these readings of it where it's like, legitimately, you can read this as like a queer narrative. It's like he's literally lives in the closet and he wears this like fabulous hat and coat and you know what I mean? And like literally he does like, there's so many memes of him like voguing and like Baba Shook, which they're fun, but it's also like there are ways you can read it where like literally, you know, it's like, yeah, it's grief. Like honestly, that's the boring ass interpretation, but it's also like, maybe like this is a manifestation of like her child's like otherness or whatever. And so, you know, you have this like man with the like who knows how to cut a silhouette. Like his silhouette is very like, you know, very you know, he has his hat and his coat and his like long nails, and it's very much. And one of my favorite things ever is like, I remember when this was happening, somebody was like, of course he's gay, like he makes a book of himself to cause drama in this house. And I'm like my mind just got blown. I'm like, he does. And literally like it sounds funny and like memey, but like also at the same time it's like, this is a serious reading. You know, like this creature makes a pop-up book, not only a book, like it's a pop-up book, and when you tear it up and like throw it in the garbage and like burn it, it comes back and it's like, oh, here, bitch. No. I'm giving you the book plus the DLC right now. So I'm going to be extra dramatic. So I think like that kind of snowballed, and then like people started cosplaying and like drag artists would dress up, but people would also go to Pride dressed up as this. And then there's actually like on a more serious note, like when people were protesting like queer events, people would literally show up to counter protest dressed up as Babadooks with like huge signs. So it's just this weird thing that like it was a combination of people reading the movie in a certain way at the same time as this weird corporate glitch happened. But you can't manufacture that. You know what I mean? Like you could not time that or make it happen. It was just this bizarre like combination of events happening at the exact same time that like literally it's a marketer's wet dream because you have no control over it. Like it just happened, and like I feel like this really elevated Babadook in a way in the pop culture like conversation, whereas it may have come and people talked about it for 4 or 5 months and then it disappeared again. But like in 2023 you're still getting, you know, gay Babadook memes every June. You know, you have always got the Babadook with the rainbow behind him. I have a Babadook Pride rainbow flag button that I bought on Etsy, and guess what? There's like hundreds of them. So yeah, that's just, it's like this weird thing that like you've literally, and in this like late capitalist stage, the fact that this weird marketing thing happened that they couldn't manufacture themselves. Like it was this weird pop culture moment. It was like an eruption that you could not possibly have guessed was going to happen. Like who would have watched the Babadook and thought that this was going to happen? Nobody. Literally nobody. Yeah. Right? Like Colton, would you have watched that and said this is going to blow up and become the Babadook is going to become a gay icon?
Absolutely not. The movie, like almost, other than when you just explained like key like details or readings of it, like it's almost like it's very much just seems like a straight narrative, like the mother, you know, with the kid, you know, but not, you know, I guess it's vaguely feminist, I guess, with her raising the kid by herself and whatnot. But when I was watching it, I was like, this seems like as far away from that reading as you can. So I was like, it's kind of funny that it has been read and repurposed in that way. And it actually fits. to a certain degree. Like that's very fun for sure.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. Like when I rewatched it, because the first time I saw it and barely remembered it, the memes kind of all started happening afterwards. So I was like, oh, I'm really looking forward to going into this viewing with this lens. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I thought it really worked. It wasn't like, to me, I was watching it and I'm like, oh yeah, that kid is totally othered. Like this, you could do a whole ass paper on like how that kid, you know, he like wears the sparkly like magician's uniform and is like conjuring doves, and it's, you know, very like fey, but anyway.
It is gay as hell.
Gay as fuck.
Well, and I was gonna say, it's like, it's also kind of crazy, you know, that it becomes this meme by accident and stuff. And like the distributor of the Blu-ray was Scream Factory for a while. And like even Scream Factory, when you order this, you choose, do you want the red cover or the Pride Edition? Like they sell Pride Edition Blu-rays of this movie still. And like,
wow.
You know, and it was, you know, it was sold out all the time. Like that's the copy everyone wanted. So yeah, like Mike said, it's just wild that this kind of like error on Netflix's part just, you know, kind of lifts a movie up like that. And yeah, you can't pay for that awesome marketing.
I have one thing that I kind of want to comment on. Maybe it's a big can of worms or a jar of worms that you feed the Babadook, but essentially this movie's like stylistic trappings. I think this movie has a couple of weird choices in it that, like, once again, like the weird Babadook crawling across the ceiling thing is like part of it. But even the way the movie opens with like the slow motion car crash scene, with like all the way it's filmed, it feels very, well, to me, it felt very low budget. Obviously not a real car crash done in a studio, whatever. But when I was watching it, I was like, this is a really strange way to begin this movie. And then it's very like ethereal when she's like falling out of it back into the bed. And then there's also one later on in the movie that really stood out to me where there's this weird sped up sleeping effect. Do you know when she goes to bed one night and they speed it up? Do those stylistic trappings work for you guys in the movies, or did they like take you out of it? Because for me, it was like, once again, it was kind of like it was putting up a wall where I was like, I was kind of vibing with this, and now this rips me out of it. It's kind of strange. What do you guys think of those couple examples? But it's all throughout the movie. There's like a directorial style here that it didn't always gel with me.
I kind of enjoyed it sometimes in a couple of moments. Like at the beginning, I thought that effect was interesting and it was unusual, but I just thought like, okay, so because I knew what happened, I was like watching it. I'm like, oh yeah, you know, I mean, obviously her husband, but the fact that like they use these stylistic choices, but then didn't really give you a moment later in the movie where it like explains it, you know what I mean? Because it's like you kind of get the feeling that like, say the car crash was really like horrific and violent, but it doesn't call back to that very often. Also, no. I did enjoy, and I think it's because when I was watching it, I was like, I thought that it was, you know, and it's funny because this is a meme now, but it's like, it felt like sleep paralysis, you know, it's like my sleep paralysis demon. And it felt like at the beginning when it was the car crash scene, and it was very much like, it was like floating above her from face down. And I just thought that was like, it was almost like her, like having an out of body experience and re-experiencing it, but like from a distance.
Yeah.
But it didn't, but it didn't really like, sort of call back to it later in the movie, which I thought was a bit strange. And I don't know, it maybe made it slightly less traumatic. You know, you didn't really like get that like, I mean, maybe because I'm used to like Hereditary where people are like getting fucking decapitated and shit on camera. But like you didn't really get to like insert yourself into the trauma and like kind of experience it as much, so you're only getting the like after effects, which I mean, maybe listen, that's obviously part of the point, but I don't know. That's just the way I looked at it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the kind of leading into the movie, that intro part didn't really work for me either. I just thought it was odd, even though they kind of tried to do the same thing like later on in the movie. I didn't think it felt connected, and it just, for the way the rest of the movie worked and looked, it just didn't seem to fit. I didn't so much mind, like I got what they were doing with like the fast forwarding effect, and it, her being basically like her head hits the pillow, and then basically it's like she didn't sleep, and
yes, of course,
yeah, like I didn't mind that as much, but the intro did. I felt that just was out of place.
I just wanted to like make a mention about how like I don't know if maybe this is a reference that you guys don't really like gel with, but like, do you know Edward Gorey's Gashly Crumb Tinies?
No.
Anyone? Okay. So it's this like very old, influential, like it's kind of like it's funny because I think we mentioned Tim Burton earlier, but it was one of like Tim Burton's, like it essentially like it's this little bunch of comics about a bunch of children, and it's kind of done in a like hand-drawn style that is very much like the book of the Babadook, Mister Babadook, about like young kids. It's like A is for blah 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 blah, and it's all these kids dying in horrific ways. It's very like gothic and dark, and I just like was watching this movie the whole time and going like, this was so influenced by Gashly Crumb Tinies, except it's just like one child. But it's fine. Like, since nobody else knows it, I won't harp on that. I just thought it was interesting. Like, if anybody wants to look at Gashly Crumb Tinies after and like let me know what they think, at me.
Yeah, actually, I'll have to look that up. I'm kind of interested in what that is. So we'll get into rating it, if that is everything. So if you're new to the show, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Jill, what would you give the Babadook?
I'm gonna give the Babadook a yay. I like the atmosphere of the movie. The slow descent into madness is pretty mesmerizing. It's a really good metaphor for grief, depression, mental illness, what have you. Personally, like I said before, I would have liked to see more of the Babadook creature. I understand why the filmmakers didn't, put the creature on the screen at all times to keep, that mystery and suspense there and talk more about like the themes and such. But I feel like for me personally, I could have used that more, and maybe, a little blood when you get stabbed in like the chest or leg or whatever it was.
The fact that you can't tell what it was, it says everything.
Exactly. I give it, 9 out of 10 cockroach infested glory holes. What about you, Mike?
I will also give it a yay. Like, it had some shortcomings, like you said. I get that they, were going for hammering home that like metaphor of like depression and grief and like the stages of grief and stuff. But I feel like you can also show more horrific content on the screen while not sacrificing your like metaphor. So, it could have pushed things a little bit further, but all in all, I thought it was one of the more enjoyable of the elevated horror. It didn't make me sick to my stomach, but it also gave me that like sense of like grief and depression and trauma. So I don't know. I thought all in all, and the performances were great. That kid being annoying as fuck. I mean, he did his job. I thought like, what's her name? Essie Davis? I thought she was wonderful. I thought everybody was great in it. I thought the lighting was really cool and interesting and different. And yeah, I totally give it a yay. I think it's something that you should watch. And like I said, there's all sorts of different readings of it and memes. And I feel like it kind of has a life of its own that spins off from the movie itself, which is pretty interesting. Ro, what do you think?
Yeah, so I'm going to also give it a yay. I enjoyed this more so than I kind of thought I would. Well, I shouldn't say that. When I, first had heard of it, I was like, oh, this seems like it'd be pretty cool. But I was kind of dubious of it. I knew it was kind of early prototype of elevated horror. And, I thought to myself, now that we're kind of, balls deep in the elevated horror world, that we probably have got some stuff far better than this, and I do think we have, but as kind of the daddy of the elevated horror stuff, I thought it was effective with what it was trying to do. The few complaints I had are really just kind of surface level complaints. I enjoyed the story. Like I said, I enjoyed most of the effects in it. I really enjoyed Essie Davis in it, in her performance. And I like the look of the Babadook. I like the lore of the Babadook. And, you know, I think it's just fun to go Babadook. So,
your use of the word daddy was very Pride Month, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Happy Pride. Rowan just said
right.
daddy. Use it as your ringtone.
So,
soundboard.
So, Colton, what would you give it?
Yeah, this one was a lot rougher for me than I remembered. I think the stylistic trappings of the movie just kind of constantly put me at arm's length. Like, I think if you can kind of overlook its scrappy nature and its jittery camera work and the stop motion effects on the creature, if you can get past all that and it doesn't bother you, then I can completely understand how you're completely pulled into this movie. But there was that, and then there was also the kid. And I do think a really annoying character can, you know, bring a movie down a couple notches for somebody. Like, literally, this is Star Wars, but the fucking Jar Jar Binks character in those prequels, I think, ruined those movies for a lot of people. This kid is like a Jar Jar Binks if he's in every scene. And it's a lot to take. I understand it's by design. It's just very hard for me to watch. Like, the movie kind of winds up annoying me for a large portion of it, and then I'm kind of bored for another section of it, and then I'm not liking the style of the other section. So there's a bunch of weird things that keep me at arm's length with it. I appreciate what it's doing. I do like the ending of not killing the monster, but learning to live with it. I don't like the complete execution of it, but I obviously I like that. But yeah, it just kind of didn't really hold up for me overall. I gave Hereditary a yay. I gave The Witch a yay. This isn't the Hereditary. This isn't The Witch. It's an okay from me. So
we told you what we thought about the Babadook, and we asked what you thought about it. And to start, we're not going to talk about the Babadook. We'll start off with we forgot last week or the other episode.
We didn't forget.
I forgot. I was trying to place blame on everybody. But we had someone comment about Annihilation, and I was like, I'll make sure to bring it up, so why not bring it up now? So Anna Partida commented on Facebook and said about Annihilation, this movie is an absolute slay. I love the trippy visuals and the eeriness of the unknown. Love me some sci-fi horror. So I have done my job. I reported what was said about it. But let's get into the Babadook. And people wrote. People have some feelings on the Babadook. So we had Seen Unseen Cast on Twitter, right? And they said, it's a yay for me. Can't be a slay because it single-handedly sparked the prestige horror conversation. So, yeah, it's someone that I'm taking it just hates them, some A24.
Yeah, they are not a Colton fan, that's for sure, whoever this person is.
That's all right. We appreciate it. So then we had Shay Rudolph, right? And she on Instagram and said, particularly effective if you've ever suffered through intense grief or crippling depression. So yeah, I can see that. I think that I thought overall, like we kind of talked about, I thought it dealt with grief pretty good and as good as you can with serious grief. Then we had that Shored Itch Girl. It's hard to read on so little. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's either that or that's Horror Ditch Girl. It's one of the two.
It's definitely not that one.
No.
Let's go Short Itch Girl.
Yeah, let's go with that
the
one.
The Horror Ditch Girl.
Oh my god.
It's you know what? It's definitely the Shore Ditch Girl. So
I was gonna say it is Pride Month. It could
be. Who knows? Anyway. So they said it's a slay, creepy visuals throughout, and a chilling reminder not to have children.
Oop.
It's definitely someone agreeing with Colton on that fact. And then we had Brad Dunn write in with a comment which, in classic Brad fashion, was all done in emojis so that I had to figure out what it meant. And it was a B and then a knee. So it is the bee's knees.
Nice.
So a fan of the Babadook with a great response. That should be a thing. We get people to only respond in emojis, and
that should not be a thing.
Yeah, no, because I'd never be able to read it. And then lastly, we had Melanie St. George write in, and all she wrote was boring. So not a fan of the Babadook.
I kind of felt that a little bit on this watch.
I was gonna say that's like Colton. Is that you? Did you write that?
Yeah, that's
look
my
at the IP
account.
address.
We're gonna have to look it up. And then lastly, I'll read this little blurb written by Holly, who's a Horror Hound Patreon member. She sadly had a chest infection, and she was gonna leave us a voicemail, and couldn't, which we are very upset because apparently she does a killer impression of the kid. So, Holly, we're putting you up to the task that once the chest infection is gone, we need you to call in, and we need that impression.
It doesn't matter what movie we're reviewing. You just need to call in. You don't even set it up. Just give us the impression, and it'll be like a PTSD flashback for me. I'll know exactly what it is.
So Holly wrote and said, "This movie is a disturbingly beautiful masterpiece with many important messages. I remember being very frightened on watching this for the first time, but I suspect that had a lot to do with the hype this movie created. This watch in prep for your episode, I was blown away by the use of color, the black and dark gloomy interiors with all supporting characters dressed in very dark colors, and then the contrast of mums in all capital letter. I take it that's the impression. Pink or light outfits as she tried to break free from her prison was striking. I was struck by the darkness overall, as it is usually to be in darkness in sunny. Oh, sorry, I can't read. I was struck by the darkness overall, as it is unusual to be in darkness in sunny Australia, but through the darkness and all throughout the movie, the love they had for each other oozed from everywhere. A special mention to the storybook creator. It is gorgeous, and I couldn't take my eyes off of it. It is a strong
I would literally buy that.
Yeah.
I would buy that book. Honestly, like, I don't know how they didn't put out a pop-up book.
They did actually.
Oh, okay.
They put out a limited release, I think, of
I don't want limited release. I don't want to pay $700 for this. I want you to mass produce it so I can buy it at $25.
Thank
you.
When it came out, I believe it was like $80. It was like $60 or $80. They made like 2,500, and it sold out immediately. And then they made another like 7,000, and then they stopped making it. And they sold out of all of them. So I'm sure if you really wanted one, you could pay a couple $1,000s or something on eBay for one.
Yeah, sorry. Nice. I'll just watch my Pirate Bay rip of this movie. Anyway.
And then, sadly, I'd take us to the horrific hotline, but there is no voicemails.
It's the first time in a long time that Nicholas is letting us down, so
I hope you're okay, Nicholas.
Yeah, I hope you're okay, Nicholas.
We're starting
maybe
a
just
search party.
Yeah, on vacation or something like that. Or maybe he just really hates the Babadook and he didn't want that smoke. He didn't want to come in with the hard nay on the Babadook.
Or in like an hour, I'll get it in my inbox, and then I'm like, oh, now I got to embarrass myself and put his voicemail in.
Well, if that happens, if there is a Nicholas voicemail, then you know what happened, dear listener. Obviously, he sent it a little bit late.
I think The Babadook is a phenomenal film. I really like it. I'll already spoil it. It's a slave for me. I can just rewatch the movie all the time, and it works brilliantly with basically only too important characters. There's a few supporting characters like the old lady and the potential boyfriend, but they don't really get any screen time. It's just the mother and the son and the dog, if you want to include him. And it's just a brilliant piece of character work, at least I think so, because the movie manages to make the child, the boy, the most annoying and sometimes most unsympathetic character in the first half of the movie. However, it just manages to turn that around the more the feelings of the mother become apparent and her hatred towards her child, and once she becomes possessed or quote-unquote possessed by the Babadook and the antagonist of the movie, it shifts completely into a great final act. And I just love that you can watch the movie as either just a scary slow burn horror movie or as a bigger drama on grief and hatred towards your own children and how to overcome both. So yeah, it's a slay for me, and I hope you guys enjoyed the movie as well.
If you want to be like Nicholas usually is and leave us a voicemail on the Horrific Hotline, you can do so by calling 1-902-418-8620, or probably the easier way, just messaging it to us on Instagram or any of our social medias at It Slays Podcast. You can always send it via email as well at itslayspodcast@gmail.com. And if you made it this far in the show and you're not following us, as I just mentioned, at It Slays Podcast on all socials. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Slasher, Letterboxd. Basically, if there's a social media, we're there at It Slays Podcast. And if you want to support the show like our horror hounds Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Steven, Joy, and Carvey, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams hosted by Jill, and get episodes of this here main show 48 hours early, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslayspodcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Now, Rowan, go ahead and plug the playlist.
So if you're into spooky music, you can go to the It Slays Podcast Horrific playlist on Spotify. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media Colton just mentioned, and there's a Linktree link in the bios. Click on there. Click on the link to get to Spotify. It'll take you right to it. We upload horror music from horror movies we reviewed, or iconic horror movies, or just horror movies we love in general, and that can be licensed music or scores. And yeah, go take a listen. It's a big playlist. We update it pretty regularly, and get your spooky music on. And last is to announce our next episode, which will be us wrapping up Pride. So this will be another Pride episode. And it was the pick of the fantastic me. So I really like to hype up this pick.
Mike's just howling.
The fantastic me! Who do you think you are?
So I decided to, I can't believe we haven't done this on the podcast yet. And you know what? I'm gonna make a promise right here again. There is no way I don't get a Rhonda Fraser voicemail for this one, because this is a Rhonda Fraser classic, and that is 1987's Hellraiser, because I don't know if anything says Pride like Clive Barker and leather. So we're gonna do it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And nails.
I am
and
so
flesh
excited.
being torn.
So get your eyeballs on Hellraiser, and we will be back in 2 weeks to continue to celebrate Pride. Hopefully you enjoy most of your month and celebrate, like Mike said, donate to any organizations, any foundations, anything to fight the good fight. And thank you for the support. And that is everything for this episode. So as always, I am your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Mike.
I'm Colton.
Bye.
See you later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
But the prime time gets
Up within the flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.